Let's say you're an ice cream seller in a city. The weather reports today's temperature is 25 degrees Celsius and you wish to sell the ice cream that meets the demand of the people as close as possible. If you try to sell too much, you waste your resources in making the ice creams which people won't buy. But at the same time, if you make too less, then you don't earn enough money and you can kind of increase those ice creams and meet the exact demand. So now we have a conflict between making more and less, and we want to find what's the optimal ice cream you need to make so that you get maximum profit. If you're lucky enough to have a data like this where there is an already tabulated data for number of ice creams sold each day based on the temperature, then you can go for an educated guess instead of randomly picking a number of ice creams that you need to sell for that day. And yeah, suppose the temperature is given to be 25 degrees Celsius. So based on this plot, you can kind of find a mean, or you can connect these dots and find, okay, it's something here in the 25 degrees Celsius that can be sold. So the number of ice creams can be found using that. So just by looking at this plot, you can say that people tend to buy more ice creams on hotter days and less ice cream on colder days. So this gives us a relation that if we can find the relation that our ice creams being sold is having some linear relation with the temperature of our days, so we can apply a linear fit to this data and plot a line that almost covers all this point to a fair extent and predict the number of ice cream we need for the specific day which has 25 degrees Celsius. So that's kind of like connecting the dots, but not exactly. We almost covered them. So knowingly or unknowingly, you have actually applied a linear regression. So for such data where you apply these regressions, so now after having a model that can predict your number of ice creams, can you tell how good that model is? Like, is it a good model for just this data, or will it work for other data as well? Can you find a way to assess this model? So that's where we come and introduce the concepts of model assessment, which we are going to use for our regression models. So here comes the part of regression assessment. So regression assessment is used to evaluate the goodness or how good it is in predicting a pattern using regression. So regression usually predicts a real value by fitting our data accordingly. So we have a couple of x's here. So it's going to learn from all this x's. It's going to find a pattern. So this pattern, in case of linear regression, is more or less mostly just slope and intercept. So our model takes this data, tabulates a m and c, and using that it predicts what is going to be the value of y at that point. So after training our model, so we have a straight line, which is here, the linear regressed model, and you can see that it fairly covers all these points. Like, it looks like a pretty decent model just by the eye. And if even if I don't happen to have a data for our 4 here, we can kind of see from this linear regression that 4 is expected to have some y value around here, which is also 4. Like, it happens to be y is equal to, the slope is equal to 1. So how do we come about this line, and how do we assess how good this line is in comparison to all the data we have? So for that, we need to go through some simple definitions, some basic definitions which we need to find out this assessment. First is the mean of our data. So if I have a couple of x points, mean is defined as all the x points summed and then the number of points we have for that data. So it's summation over xi and then divided by n. Variance similarly is a quantification which tells you how much error is present about the mean of our data. So if you have an x which is too far from it, we expect it to have larger mean, and larger variance, and if you have a point closer to this mean, so we expect it to have a lesser variance. So that is quantified by the square. Why? Because we don't care about the sign of our error, if it's both above and below mean, we just take the value, magnitude of the value, sum over all of them, and then just take an average. So it's like if you wish to find exact variance of a model, like using statistics, you can show that it's a better variance to have 1 by n minus 1 instead of 1 by n for smaller data set, but for a considerable large amount we don't like, it doesn't matter much. So this is a plot that shows how our model behaves if we have larger and smaller variances. So if our variance is pretty small, like in this case it's 1, so we have a sharply spiked data about a mean, so that corresponds to all the data points being closely like tucked within this line. But if you have larger values of variance, such you can see that the pattern tends to be more and more flat, and that corresponds to these points being like distributed farther away from this mean. So that kind of quantifies this variance. So now comes the evaluation part, assessment part. So the assessment for linear regressors is usually and most popularly defined by something called Pearson's R. So Pearson's R by mathematics, like the mathematical definition is this: n summation over xy minus summation x summation y divided by the square root of n summation x square minus summation of x squared times n summation y squared minus summation y the whole squared. So like fortunately there's an easier way of interpreting this Pearson's R. So suppose we have a data like this, where this red dots are our data points, and we wish to find a regression which more or less touches these points like pretty fairly. So to quantify that fairness, we define a coefficient called Pearson's R that tells you how good this line is. So Pearson's R actually considers the variance of mean above the mean, which is this line, black line, the mean of our data point about y, and then it looks at your fitted line, this one right here. The blue line is the line which you predict to be the model, and it takes in the variance of that, it subtracts them, and it normalizes them by dividing it by the variance of the mean. So the smaller the variance of this line turns out to be, then the larger the r, like the closer the r square is going to be to 1. So that kind of gives us a good certification that our line should touch more or less all these points. So if it tries to go away from it, our r square is going to be like pretty bad. So here are some plots which gives us a good more visual understanding about this R. So Pearson's R, if it's a perfect one, so that means there is no variance about a line. So if we have a line that fits this graph, so that line is going to go through each and every single point of this, because only then we are going to have the square of all these sums to be 0. So therefore this corresponds to a data which has Pearson's R to be 1. So now as we slowly decrease our Pearson's R, we see that our data points tend to scatter around, and if it's really close to 0, then we see that there is no pattern at all. You cannot find any pattern that is too visible. So this kind of gives us an idea about how powerful our Pearson's R is in classifying, in assessing our models. So previously we have looked at the instance of linear applying assessments on our regression model, and now we shall go to a classification problem. So a binary classifier is a model that works on finding how good our it's a model that finds out yes or no. It outputs an yes or no based on the set of features given to it as an input for training. So it looks at the data, it kinds of trains on it, it figures out something, then it says a yes or no based on its evaluation. So to find out how good our binary classifier is, so since it's a classification, it's either 0 or 1, so we take advantage of something called a confusion matrix. So confusion matrix is something that is introduced to get a better insight of all the aspects of our model performance. So why is it confusion? It's confusion because you can see that our model doesn't predict everything perfectly. So there are some cases where it actually predicts the true one as positive. It predicts negative also correctly, but there are also cases where it falsely predicts positive and negative. So to get a better idea of what this confusion matrix is, so we shall look at some example of a classification model. Suppose it's a COVID data. So we have a label which says if a person is infected by COVID or not. So if he's infected, we label him as 1. If it's not infected, we label him as 0. So we learn these features based on, we learn this thing based on some features like age, gender, previous contacts, so on and so forth. Features can be anything which you want, which is relevant for our training. So it inputs all these things, our model, then it spits out a value which is either 0 or 1. So suppose it says 0 to an actual COVID negative person. So then it's classifying a true negative case. So it's a negative, and that negative happens to be the actual negative. And if a feature spits out 0, but if it's actually 1, if it's actually predicting a COVID positive person as negative, so that's a false negative because it's actually not negative, but he's actually infected, and this model is wrongly saying him to be negative. And the third case where it's true positive is when it says it falsely says you are a COVID positive person when you are actually not. So that's a case of true positive. And finally it spits out 1 for a person who is actually infected by COVID. So that's a true positive. That's a true positive case right there. So based on these 4 things, we can define lots of definitions just based on this true positive, false positive, true negative and false negative, and they can be used to your depending on what you need more in your data. Like for example, in some cases we need to be precise more than accurate, we need to be having less cases of false positive or false negative. So the definitions, let's first look at accuracy. So accuracy is something that tells you how correct your model is predicting over all the predictions it has made. So the correct predictions are predicting true positive and predicting true negative. So these are the correct predictions, and the total predictions is true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative. So that's our accuracy right here. And precision is a ratio of true positive over true positive and false positive. So given our machine has predicted a true positive case, so how much precise is it? If it's completely precise, then it should not have any false positive present in it. It should not predict anything that is falsely positive. So therefore precision is a ratio of true positive and true positive plus false positive. Then there is something called recall, sensitivity and true positive rate. All these three definitions synonymous. Sensitivity is the ratio of true positive over true positive and false negative. So if we have a label which is wrongly predicted by our model as negative, and there is a label which is actually predicted positive, so sensitivity gives a ratio of how much how much positive it has predicted over the actual positive, like the actual positive cases present. So actual positive present is both false negative and true positive, and how much it has predicted, it has only predicted this much out of them. So that's sensitivity. Similarly, specificity is how much true negative it has predicted over all the negative values. So all the negative values, true negative and false positive, so it has predicted this much correctly out of this plus this. So that's the specificity. And negative predictive value is something additional, which is the ratio of true negative over true negative and false negative. So that kinds of is kind of an opposite of precision. So here now we are finding how much wrong it has predicted correctly over all the predictions which it has labeled as negative. So these are the like simple definitions which might be useful to our model depending on what we are doing. Like suppose if we are looking at a COVID case as here, so we need to avoid as much as possible this false negative cases, because we don't want any COVID infected person to like go around and infect more people. So we need to train a model that is really learnt in labeling these things more carefully than others. Like false positive doesn't matter, it's just going to like, it doesn't matter if he's like falsely like labeled as positive, because it's not going to affect the crowd, like the commoners, as much as this false negative person. So therefore these definitions might be useful depending on all our datas. And besides this, there's another important definition for assessing our model, which is called F1 precision. So F1 precision is something that ensures your machine tries to predict as much as possible the correct values properly. So we desire a machine which kinds of has lots of diagonal elements and no off diagonal elements. So this is a model which we desire, and this is a model which we don't desire. We don't want our machine to classify everything badly and send the data in off diagonal elements as compared to this one. So to quantify this effect, we define something called a precision, this F1 precision. So F1 precision takes care of both precision and recall. So F1 precision is going to be a good score for your model only if your precision as well as recall is close to 1. So if any of them happens to be a small number, so then this entire score is going to drop down significantly because of this product. So if you happen to predict false positive, which is here, and if you predict false negative more, so then this precision or recalls respectively they will increase, and due to which our F1 is going to have a significant drop in its score. So therefore off diagonal elements, the presence of off diagonal elements is going to significantly reduce this precision and recall, and overall label our model as a purely functioning model. So we can go into something called ROC and PR curves. So suppose we have a binary classifier model. So usually our binary classifier models works on defining a threshold and labeling our data based on the fact that our data is below or above the threshold. So if it's above the threshold, like in this instance for logistic regression, if we define 0.5 as our threshold, if our model has a value which is more than 0.5, so it's going to label it as 1, and if similarly if it's below 0.5, then it's going to label it as 0. So this is how it classifies our model as yes or no into an yes or no question. So we can see that if we have a data which is closely packed around this threshold value, our machine our model is strongly dependent on how we define a threshold value. So for that for optimizing that threshold value, we introduce something called ROC and PR curves. So this is a applet that kind of shows us how this data are. So this red curve right here, this curve, this is our true negative values, and this green curve is our true positive values, and this line which you see, that is the threshold which our machine has defined. So if our machine defines a threshold right here, so it kind of classifies our false data as positive. So we get a lot of contribution from false positive of the false positive in our confusion matrix. So similarly, if we set our threshold too far, then we see that it classifies wrongly all these positive values, the actual positive values, as negative. So therefore we get contributions from the off diagonal element which is false negative. So therefore we need to optimally find the threshold value such that our false positive and false negative are minimized, and we have a model which correctly classifies all our data. So ideally speaking, if we have a model like this, then any threshold between this region is good enough to classify our model. But in actual practice, we have a curve that is kind of overlapped. So we can't find an exact threshold such that we can completely split it into 0 and like a yes or no classification with a 100% accuracy. So therefore, for these things, we need something called we need a way to assess these things and find an optimal threshold. Like this is too bad because now everything the machine classifies is positive. But on the other hand, if we go too far, then again this is also bad because it's classifying everything as negative. So we need something like which is kind of optimal around here. So to get into that, we go into something called precision recall curve. So precision recall curve is a curve that plots the precision and recall in x and y axis and y and x axis respectively for various values of our threshold. So we see that if you desire to have a maximum F1 score, we need to have the product of precision and recall to be maximum. So to have this product to be maximum, we need to maximize the area of this curve. So wherever this precision and recall is having a maximum rectangle, so that is the point where we choose our threshold to be. So if it's somewhere here, so this is where our model is going to have a good threshold value, like a kind of balanced precision and recall product. So this is a data which is taken from a website. It kinds of shows us different graphs for different PC curves for different models, and the larger the area it has, like the more and more better it has for both precision and recall, the better the model is. So if it's somewhere around here, it's kind of lagging behind, it's a really bad model. But if it has a better precision and recall, then it's kind of better. So another way of quantifying our F1 score is, sorry, not F1 score, another way of quantifying our off diagonal elements is by an ROC curve. So an ROC curve, instead of plotting precision and recall, it kind of plots our true positive rate and false positive rate. So just a recap, true positive rate is the actual positivity as predicted over the all positive cases, and false positive is the actual false positivity as predicted over all the negative cases. So to find out this, so again we need a model which minimizes this false negative and false positive. So therefore we need a maximum area of this curve. So if we look at a straight line like this, that corresponds to a random, it's like a completely random choice. So our machine kinds of it's analogous to like tossing a coin, then deciding if it's heads, then it's a yes, if it's tails, then it's a no. So it has a 50-50 chance of getting false positive and false negative. So therefore it's going to follow this y is equal to x curve. But on the other hand, if our graph slowly moves towards this leftmost corner, so then it kind of learns something. It has some pattern through which it finds out a better prediction for all our classifications. So the ideal thing is that we need to have all true positive and no false positive rates. So that's when our model perfectly classifies everything as correct, and there is no contribution from our false positive and false negative. So that's why we find out a curve that has maximum area, because the maximum area corresponds to the rectangle which kind of has the maximum product of these two. So if we have a curve that goes like closer towards this leftmost corner, so we are going to have a better predicting model. So that's our theory of ROC. So these two are really useful in predicting our thresholds which we define in our binary classifiers. Precision, like when do we need precision recall curve or ROC curve? So that depends upon our model actually. So if it wants to predict a model which kinds of needs to consider these two negative cases which is not present in our precision recall curve, then it's more preferable to choose ROC over precision recall. So like now that we have learnt all this theory about basic theory behind this model assessment, how we classify, how we assess our classifying model and how we assess our regression model. So we shall go to look at some examples of how this is implemented in our real life data.
Hello, now in this part of the video, let's see how we need to code our model so as to get the useful details required for model assessment. So first, for the regressor model, we need to import certain libraries which we will require for calculation of required parameters. First is NumPy, second is matplotlib, and third one is sklearn.linear model import linear regression. So here we have tried making some random data points. So we have created 100 random data points with np.random.random, and this 10 factor here is to scale the values. Similarly, for the constant, we have created 100 constants also, and here we have defined m equals to 1, so which is the slope, and from we can calculate the value of y with the equation y equals to mx plus c. So as we know, we are going for a linear fit, so we have tried to create a random linear points. So here is how our x looks like. It's an array of 100 data points. Similarly, after calculating y, our y looks like this, something like this. Now plotting the graph. So when we plot our this x versus y, we got this scatter plot with, and we have defined with that slope equals to 1 here. Therefore all these lines are following in this diagonal fashion towards left corner to the right corner. Now we will try to fit this random 100 data points with sklearn library. So first we need to reshape our data, means with this function x.reshape, we are going to reshape our x values. Here -1 indicates that we have unknown number of rows, whereas 1 indicates that how many columns we need in our each array. So as you can see, we have created n number of 100 number of rows, because by default we know that we gave 100 values in x. So we have created 100 number of rows and only one column value. So as you can see, there are two brackets. Every data point is covered into a single bracket. Similarly, for the c values, we have reshaped into it. This reshape is required to fit in our data points into the sklearn function. So here we have used the linear regression dot fit x comma y as reg, and from reg function, after fitting it, we have tried to recall the slope. Reg dot coef is the slope, and intercept is given by reg dot intercept. So the slope came out to be around 0.9957, which is quite good with respect to what we fed. We fed slope equals to 1, and the intercept came around 0.73. Now as you can see, this plot is the fitted slope. It shows the it is a fitting line which shows the means how good our plot is. Now if you need to calculate the other parameters which we require to know how good our this model is, so we need to calculate the mean. First, mean can be given by np.mean. It's come into the NumPy library itself. So here the mean we found out to be 5.82, and the variance of the model, where means it suggests that how far is this each point is from this line. So variance was came out to found to be 9.867, and the R square value, the Pearson's value R, for which we have used scikit-learn's metrics R2 score library. The R square value came out to be 0.92, which is very good. And now I would like to show you what happens when we increase the variance and how our R square value is affected. So let's go and run the program with changing our intercept value a little bit, so that these plots will get scatter more. I will show you now. So let's make this to 1.52, let's say 2.5, and try to run these. So now, okay, for with this value we have ran our model. So similarly the x values will get updated as they are just random numbers, so as our y will get updated here. Now when we try to see the plot, it looks something like this. So as you can see, the distance between the points have been increased. It is more spread now because we changed the intercept value. That is the it actually affects by how much in the y-axis we are shifting the points. So I will quickly run through all the algorithms again, all the codes again. Going through C. Now for fitting data. Now as you can see, the slope came out to be 0.98 and the intercept is 1.47, and the plot will look something like this. As you can see, this time the points are quite far away, and very less number of points are lying on the line as compared to before. And this time our mean came out to be 6.447 and the variance was 8.050. Now the main thing is our R square value, which how much it is. So as you can see, as we increase the variance in our model, very less number of data points lied on the fitting line, and the R square value decreased significantly. And if we try to change our intercept by furthermore, let's say 3.5, so this time this distance between the points all increased quite significantly. Now reshaping the data. And now plotting the graph. So as you can see, now very few points are touching the line, and this time our R square, the Pearson value, the R square value will be significantly reduced. Let's see how much it came. So as you can see, it came around 0.529. It is very less as compared to what we saw earlier. So now let's go to our classifier model, in classifier assessment model. So here I have used a credit card prediction data set here. So in this thing we are trying to classify whether a person has a credit card or not. For this we have used a data set used from National Sample Survey. So the libraries we have used here are pandas, PyReadStat is used for reading SAV file, and NumPy library is for Matplotlib library, and statsmodel.api. And from scikit-learn library we have used model selection, train, test, split for splitting the data into testing and training. Similarly, import metrics and confusion metrics, ROC curve, ROC, AUC score for calculation of ROC, AUC values. Decision tree classifier, it is a classifier model. Gaussian NB, it's a naive Bayes from sklearn.naive Bayes. It is also a classifier model. And logistic regression, and at last we have used sklearn matrix import classification report. So this last library will help us to create the precision and recall values for us. Now after importing the data, I will show you quickly how our model assessment really works. So we have we have selected our data x and y values and split it into x train, x test, y train, y test. And now when we run our various algorithms on it, model. So first with decision tree classifier, the accuracy we got is around 82%, and the confusion matrix to check the accuracy of the model, we need to use matrix.accuracy score ypred ytest. And for to see the confusion matrix, we just need to recall our library confusion matrix ytest, yprediction. So it compares the data, testing data from and the predicting data, and print out the confusion matrix as you can see here. And now to get the other values like precision, recall, F1 score, we just directly call the classification report ytest with feeding in the ytest and yprediction values, and we get the precision score for classifying as 0, similarly recall score for classifying 0, and F1 score for classifying 0. Here 0 means the person not having credit card and 1 means person having credit card. So as you can see here, since the data set is an imbalanced data set, and ROC AUC help us here to know, as we can see here, that for people having credit card it is giving a precision of 0.65 and a recall of 0.44, which is quite less, and that's why it affects our F1 score as well at 0.53. And these are the averages of weighted average and macro average. Now for similarly for other classifier algorithms also, for naive Bayes, we got the accuracy as 77%, and confusion matrix looks something like this. Now, and the precision and recall F1 scores were we got using classification report library. So similarly for multivariate logistic regression, the accuracy came around 79%, and for a random forest classifier too, 81%. But now we will see that even if a model is having such a good accuracy due to imbalanced data set, we cannot just say that model, even if it is making good prediction, we cannot say it is a good classifier model. So for that, let's see our ROC AOC plots, how to plot them. So here we have calculated rprob. It is here we have calculated the rprob and rfprob, nbprob, dtprob, and logistic prob. These are the probabilities of different classifier models we have used here using predict.probability, and similarly for naive Bayes classifier predict.probability. This is the library we have used here, which helps us to calculate the probabilities. Now arranging the data set in a single column for our easy purpose to plot it. Now to calculate the ROC AUC score, we need to use ROC AUC score, ytest, and R probability, which we calculated just right above. So for random forest, this R prob is I will show you later what R prob here is. It is because these four are the decision means classifier models, but R prob is something different. I will show you in the plot later. So similarly, we have calculated the ROC AUC scores using ROC AUC score giving and feeding the ytest and the calculated probability. Now when we made the scores for this different when we made the scores for these classifiers, this R random prediction we got is around 0.5. It is just a threshold line which shows that a model is unable to decide which is means which is giving equal priority to both the positively classifying and negatively classifying, or predicting correct or predicting wrong. Whereas random forest gives AUC score of 0.86 and naive Bayes gives a AUC score of 0.3 and decision tree gives a AUC score of 0.86. Decision tree gives us AUC score of 0.86 and logistic regression gives a score of 0.82. Now when we plot this, when we try to plot this data, we get the result something like this. As you can see, this is the random prediction which I was talking earlier about, that this blue line, dotted blue line, it shows that our model is neither good or nor bad. Means it is a crappy model because it is unable to decide whether which should be given a higher priority to, means it is unable to decide whether it should classify it as wrong or it should classify it as right. So as you can see here, random forest, naive Bayes and decision trees are giving quite good values. No, random forest, decision tree and logistic regressions are giving a good values, whereas naive Bayes is really worst here because it is giving lower AUC score than the random chance prediction also, because it is totally confused. This naive Bayes model is even it is given it is high accuracy, not high accuracy means a good accuracy, but even though it is, this model is unable to decide how to classify or which points are to be classified as correct and which points are to be classified as wrong. So for our dataset, as for predicting the credit card, it is unable to decide who person should have a credit card and who person should not have a credit card. Now if you will look into the model individually, so I have plotted here for random forest here. So it looks something like this. As you can see, naive Bayes here, it has the AUC is actually the area under the score, as we have discussed earlier. So that area is quite less here as compared to the others, and for decision tree and logistic regression it came something like this. So thank you all for listening.